So we're picking up in this video with the economic and social effects of the war on the North and South. So we'll start with the South. By the end of 1863, the Confederacy was on the road to defeat. Northern military pressure had pretty much sapped its manpower, and the blockade sapped its economic strength. So shortages led to drastic inflation. So like by 1864, an officer's coat was about $2,000 and butter was like $25 a pound. So they tried to increase manufacturing in the South, but these attempts were only moderately successful because of shortages in labor, shortage of money or capital, and they just lacked the technical knowledge needed during this time. So imported goods like coffee and salt and other spices became scarce or disappeared altogether. And because the South was so against a powerful centralized government, the Confederacy was not able to make effective use of its scarce resources because they didn't have the power to take over industry or anything like that. So for the South, there were devastating economic and social effects from the war. On the other hand, the Northern economy boomed after 1861, and that was mostly because the government demand stimulated manufacturing. So Congress even passed a bunch of economic measures that had previously been blocked by Southerners. And just to name some of these tariffs, and I'll write them down for you so you can see them. The Homestead Act. The Homestead Act gave 160 acres of land to any settler who would farm that land for 5 years. And then there was the Morrill Land Grant. This is an O. The Morrill Land Grant, and that's 2 L's. And this provided the states with the land that they needed to support state agricultural colleges. So it made a way for states to have agricultural colleges. Another one was the Pacific Railway Act, and this one provided land and money for a continental railroad. And then the National Banking Act, signed in 1863, gave the country a uniform currency. So the economy grew, but it did so at a slower pace than before or after the war. There were some downsides. Inflation caused workers' salaries to not be worth as much, which in turn led to strikes. Reduced immigration led to labor shortages. But overall, the war hastened industrialization, and really it laid the basis for many other aspects of modern civilization. The modernizing effect of the war can also be seen in the expanding role of women during the war. Many Southern women took over the management of farms and plantations while the men were away serving in the military. Other Southern women served as nurses in the Confederate Medical Corps or even as government clerks. And so, in some ways, this war was the death of the quote-unquote Southern ladyhood as women stepped out of their realms of parenting and being a good wife. Northern women also ran farms. They took jobs in factories or sometimes in government agencies. Elizabeth Blackwell was the first woman doctor in the United States, and she helped organize the Sanitary Commission, and the purpose of that was just to improve sanitary conditions in Army camps. As you can imagine, that might be nasty. Another one was Clara Barton, initially a teacher and a government clerk, was the first to dress wounds on the battlefield. And then because women nurses were gradually accepted, and it showed that the proper sphere for women was expanding. And like I said, this is another modernizing effect of the Civil War. So Sherman in Georgia. Grant's strategy in the South was to attack Lee and to try to capture Richmond while General Sherman marched from Chattanooga to Atlanta. And then the two armies would then, like lobster claws, close in and crush all remaining resistance. Well, Grant attempted to outflank Lee in a series of battles, but he really gained very little advantage and suffered heavy losses. But Grant knew that his losses could be replaced. Lee's men could not be replaced. Again, the population in the North was much larger than the population in the South. But at any rate, Grant lost 60,000 men in a month, and as a result received heavy criticisms from the North, and people demanded that Lincoln remove him, which Lincoln, of course, did not. So Grant moved around Lee's flank and struck towards Petersburg, Virginia, and Lee rushed in to hold the city, which Grant placed under siege. And so Lee was pinned at that point. So in June 1864, Lincoln was renominated with Andrew Johnson as his running mate. And you've got the Democratic nominee, General McClellan, our reluctant warrior who was advocating peace at any price. And so Lincoln's chances actually looked pretty slim. That was until September when Sherman captured Atlanta and began his march to the sea. And Sherman had fought under Grant at Shiloh, and the two had become friends. And Sherman actually said, quote, "He stood by me when I was crazy." Apparently he suffered a nervous breakdown in 1861. And then I stood by him when he was drunk. So Lee won re-election handedly. But in December 1864, Sherman, who was all about total war and the necessity of destroying the South's economic base and its morale, entered Savannah and marched northward. And as he marched northward, he burned everything in sight. And also as he marched northward, blacks were joining him by the thousands to fight with the Union Army. So this was the end for the South, pretty much. And so that takes us to Appomattox Courthouse. Lee desperately tried to pull his army back from the siege at Petersburg, but he was enveloped by Grant, and Richmond fell on April 3rd. And so Lee and Grant met at Appomattox Courthouse on April 9th, 1865, and this is where Lee surrendered. And after Lee and Grant shook hands, Grant said, "I met you once before, Mr. Lee, while we were serving in Mexico. I have always remembered your appearance, and I think I should have recognized you anywhere." But Grant's terms were very generous. They required only that the Confederate soldiers lay down their arms and return to their homes. And he agreed to even allow Southern soldiers to keep their horses so that they would have something to farm with and something to get back home with. And so in Lincoln's inaugural address, he called for tolerance, for mercy, and for reconstruction. And so in closing the chapter, we'll just look at winners and losers. And of course, in the next chapter, we'll pick up with Reconstruction. So the Civil War cost the nation about 600,000 lives. And there have been more recent estimates that say it was about 750,000. But at any rate, it was an enormous loss of life. The South suffered enormous property damage, and the war left extreme bitterness on both sides. There are people even today in the South who want to strike up the Civil War again and secede from the Union. But despite the cost, the war did end slavery, and secession at that point became almost inconceivable. So a war designed to preserve a union of states had actually forged a great nation. And so America emerged from the war more technologically advanced and had a more productive economic system. And so that is where we will end our Civil War chapter. And in the next chapter, we will pick up with Reconstruction.